In the spring of 1903, a French survey expedition crossed into the southern Algerian Sahara on what was supposed to be a routine geological mission. Their orders were simple: map the terrain, document mineral deposits, chart water sources, return within 6 weeks. Nothing unusual, nothing controversial, just another colonial-era survey into one of the harshest landscapes on Earth. But when the team finally returned to France, nearly 3 months later, everything had changed. 2 members of the expedition were dead. One of the surviving men would be committed to a psychiatric institution less than a year later. And the official report, hundreds of pages long, filled with measurements, geological sketches, and photographic plates, was quietly withdrawn from circulation. The explanation given was simple: measurement errors, data inconsistencies. A revised edition would be issued later. But it never was. No corrected report ever appeared, and over time, nearly every known copy vanished. Today, only fragments remain. Fragments that describe something so strange, so impossible, that even now, it sounds like fiction. Scattered across a remote section of the Sahara, the expedition documented dozens of petrified tree trunks, but not ordinary fossilized wood. Something far larger. Something that should not exist. The largest specimen was recorded at over 40 meters in diameter. Think about that. 40 meters. That's wider than many houses, wider than city streets, larger than any tree ever documented in human history. And they didn't find just one. They found dozens. Some partially buried, some exposed, some arranged in patterns that didn't look natural. Today, almost nobody knows this story. The report disappeared, the photographs vanished, and the exact location of the site remains uncertain. So what did they find? And why was it hidden? Because if the surviving records are accurate, this discovery could challenge everything we think we know about Earth's history. Before we go deeper, subscribe to the channel if you're interested in forgotten history, unexplained discoveries, and the mysteries buried beneath official narratives. Because this story gets stranger the deeper you go. To understand why this matters, we need to understand the Sahara itself. Most people imagine the Sahara as eternal, an endless ocean of sand, a place that has always been dry, always been empty. But that image is wrong. The Sahara was once green. Not millions of years ago, within relatively recent geological history. Between roughly 10,000 and 5,000 years ago, much of North Africa was covered in grasslands, forests, rivers, and lakes. Scientists call this the African humid period. Satellite imagery has revealed ancient river systems beneath the sand. Archaeologists have found fish bones in places now completely dry. Rock art across Algeria and Libya shows giraffes, elephants, crocodiles, and hippos. Animals that could only survive in a wet environment. This wasn't desert, it was fertile land, a living ecosystem. And yes, trees existed there. But here's the problem. None of the known tree species from that era, or that region, could grow anywhere near the size described in the 1903 expedition. Not even close. The largest trees alive today are giant sequoias, massive organisms, thousands of years old, but even they average around 8 to 11 meters in diameter. The Sahara specimens? Over 30, over 40. That's not just unusual, that's biologically extreme. Unknown species, misidentified formations, or evidence of something far older and stranger? The expedition was led by Etienne Marchand, a respected surveyor, educated, experienced, known for precision. Not a fantasist, not a storyteller. A man trusted by the French government to map difficult territory. His surviving field notes begin normally. Coordinates, elevation, rock composition, wind patterns, water sources. Routine scientific observations. Nothing unusual. Until April 19th. That's when everything changed. According to Marchand's journal, one of the Tuareg guides approached him with a story. A place deep in the desert, known among local tribes, a forbidden place, a place called, roughly translated, the Field of Fallen Giants. Marchand reportedly dismissed it at first, a legend, desert folklore. But the guide insisted. He had seen it as a child, his father had seen it, and according to tribal tradition, outsiders had never been shown. Until now. Marchand agreed to investigate. The team changed course, and after nearly 2 days of travel, they arrived. At first Marchand thought he was looking at ridges of stone, long formations stretching across the sand, parallel, uniform, too straight, too deliberate. But as he approached, he noticed something impossible. Texture, pattern, growth rings, bark, wood grain, petrified, stone, yes, but once alive. He measured the first trunk himself, then ordered his geologist to verify it independently. Both measurements matched. 31 meters across. Marchand reportedly stood in silence for several minutes, then wrote in his journal, "This object should not exist." Over the next several days, the team found more, and more. 14 in the first cluster. Then dozens more spread across the surrounding region. Some were broken, some intact, some buried beneath layers of sand. And one, according to the report, measured over 40 meters in diameter, the largest ever recorded. But the size wasn't the strangest part. It was the arrangement. The trunks weren't scattered randomly. They appeared aligned, parallel, evenly spaced, almost like they had been placed there, not fallen naturally, positioned. That changes everything, because trees don't fall in organized formations across hundreds of kilometers. Nature doesn't arrange forests like lumberyards, unless something moved them. And if something moved them, what and who? Even with modern cranes and industrial transport, moving a trunk of that size would be nearly impossible. The weight would be unimaginable. Hundreds of thousands of tons. Yet local oral traditions claimed these trees had been moved, transported, used, by beings described only as giants. Now, before dismissing that as mythology, remember, many ancient cultures preserve memories of events through symbolic storytelling. Floods, wars, catastrophes, lost civilizations. Sometimes myths preserve truths in distorted form. Could this be one of those cases? Marchand's geologist, Paul Renard, reportedly became obsessed with the site. His notes focused on mineralization patterns. He concluded the wood had undergone petrification over immense time. But the surrounding geology didn't match. The sediment layers suggested displacement, meaning the trunks may not have originated there. They may have been transported. That raises another impossible question. Transported from where? And why? The expedition photographer Henri Vasseur documented everything. Glass plate photographs, wide shots, close-ups, scale comparisons. At least 3 of those images were included in the original report. But after the report was withdrawn, the originals disappeared. Only descriptions remain. And according to later researchers, the images showed human figures standing beside the trunks. Tiny by comparison, barely visible, like ants beside fallen towers. If those photographs still existed, they would be among the most controversial geological images ever taken. But they don't. Or at least, not publicly. And that's where the mystery deepens. Because after the expedition returned, strange things happened. 2 members died on the journey back, officially from heat exhaustion. But Renard later wrote privately that he suspected poisoning. Why? He never explained. Vasseur, the photographer, reportedly suffered severe psychological collapse. Nightmares, paranoia, isolation. He was institutionalized within months. He died years later, and his personal papers were destroyed. Marchand himself never publicly discussed the expedition again. Not once. But private letters discovered decades later suggest he regretted publishing the report. Not because it was wrong, but because of what happened after. He wrote of pressure. People telling him to let it go, to forget. Why? What was so dangerous about fossilized trees? Unless they represented something bigger, something history wasn't prepared to explain. Because here's the real problem. If those trunks were real, their existence breaks the timeline. Either Earth once supported tree species far larger than anything known, or our fossil record is incomplete. Or, someone moved them. And if someone moved them, that implies engineering capabilities beyond what mainstream history allows for ancient civilizations. That's where alternative historians enter the conversation. Some argue these trunks may be remnants of a forgotten civilization, not primitive, advanced, industrial, capable of moving impossible materials, building at impossible scales, a civilization erased by catastrophe, or time, or both. And while mainstream archaeology rejects these ideas, the pattern of suppression raises questions. Why withdraw the report? Why lose the photographs? Why erase the site? Why does almost nobody know this happened? Marchand's team reportedly mapped the area for weeks. They documented strange earthworks near the trunks, artificial channels, raised embankments, geometric depressions, patterns too regular to be natural. Could they have been roads, transport systems, construction zones? We don't know, because no major excavation followed, at least officially. There are rumors of later expeditions, a French military survey in the 1930s, a geological team in the 1950s, private researchers in the 1980s. Some claimed to relocate parts of the site. Others claimed it had vanished beneath shifting dunes, buried again, lost, or hidden. Modern satellite imaging could potentially locate it. But no major institution has attempted it, at least not publicly. And that silence is part of the mystery. Because science usually investigates anomalies. That's how knowledge grows. But this anomaly disappeared. Quietly. Completely. And that's unusual. So let's consider the possibilities. Possibility 1. The measurements were wrong. Simple human error. But multiple surveyors confirmed them. Independent measurements matched. That weakens the explanation. Possibility 2. They were trees. Misidentified rock formations. Possible. But bark patterns, growth rings, and wood grain were reportedly visible. That makes misidentification harder to accept. Possibility 3. They were real, and they represent a biological history we don't yet understand. A lost ecosystem, a forgotten age, or something even stranger. Because if giant forests once existed in the Sahara, what else existed with them? What civilizations lived there? What structures remain buried beneath the sand? Remember, the Sahara is enormous, larger than the United States, and much of it remains unexplored. Entire landscapes hidden beneath dunes, ancient rivers, buried lakes, lost settlements. What if this site is just one fragment of something much larger? A forgotten chapter of Earth's history, one we haven't uncovered yet. And maybe that's the most unsettling possibility. Not that history is wrong, but that it's incomplete. That beneath the sand, beneath the official record, beneath the silence, there are truths waiting. Waiting for someone willing to look. Because deserts preserve, they bury, they hide, but they also protect. And sometimes, what survives beneath them can rewrite everything. So what happened in 1903? Did Marchand's team discover impossible petrified giants? Did they uncover evidence of a lost ecosystem? Or something connected to a forgotten civilization? We may never know, but the fragments remain. The notes, the measurements, the testimonies, and the silence that followed. Sometimes silence tells its own story. And in this case, it may be the loudest evidence of all. Because somewhere beneath the Algerian Sahara, if the records are true, lie the remains of something impossible. Something ancient, something enormous, and maybe something history was never meant to remember. The desert keeps its secrets, but secrets have a way of resurfacing, and when they do, they change everything. So what do you think? Was this a lost scientific discovery? A geological anomaly? Or evidence of a forgotten world buried beneath the sands? Let us know in the comments. And if you want more deep investigations into hidden history, unexplained archaeology, and the mysteries buried beneath official timelines, watch the next video.